Hey guys, this is Mr. Win. Today we're going to talk about slope. Slope is the first lesson of Unit 3, and we're going to talk about how to find slope in different representations, okay? So the essential question is, how do I determine slope from the slope-intercept form? 2 points, a table, a graph, and point-slope form. So 5 different ways there, alright? So first off, you have your slope-intercept form. The slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Alright? It's called the slope-intercept form. So there's always two things to this form. M is your slope. Okay, b is your y-intercept. Alright? Slope-intercept form. There's always two things, a slope and an intercept. The m and the b. Okay? And simply, if you notice, your slope is just this m that's attached to the x. So if you had an equation, for example, 7x plus 9, your slope is just going to be 7. So equations are a little easy to tell. If you recognize the equation and know how it's formed, you can just look at it, right? It's always m, the number multiplied by x. M would be a coefficient, okay? So in this case, m would be 7. That's your slope. B would be here, 9. Okay, that's your y-intercept. Now, what if I have 2 points? If you're given 2 points, you would use this equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And the reason why, because if you remember, slope is also called your rate of change, which is also your change in y. Okay, change in y over change in x. And let's see, it's also called rise over run. Okay, if you watch the video or the whole music video, rise over run, well, rise is what you go up by, right? It's how you change your y. And you notice how y2 minus 1, okay, it's all on top. How much you rise by, you're changing y. And then run, you're running on a flat ground, you're going horizontal, right? It's your change in x. The x-axis is the horizontal axis. And notice that x2 minus x1 is on the bottom. So just always remember, when you're given 2 points, y's are on top, divided by x is on the bottom. So for example 1, a couple ways you can do this. You can just label them as, this is your x1, that just means the first x, okay? X of the first point. And this would be your x2, the second x of the second point. 8 would be your y1, because that's the first y, okay, or the y of the first point. This would be y2. Okay, so 6 would be x1, y1 would be 8, x2 would be 7, y2 would be 2. And if you plugged in the formula, y's are going to come first. So I'm going to take the 2 and the 8. So let's see, 2 minus 8. And I'm going to divide that by your x's. x2 minus x1, so the second x, 7, minus the first x, 6. That would give me, well, 2 minus 8 is going to be negative 6. And then 7 minus 6 would be 1. So your slope of m is just going to be negative 6. And there is another method you could use where if you just stack the points. So like say the second point was 7, 2, right? If you stack the point 6, 8 under it, you can already know that you're subtracting the y. So 2 minus 8, it's the change in y, right? Change in y. Subtract the 2 minus 8, negative 6. And then subtract the x is 7 minus 6 divided by change in x. That would be 1. So we took the same steps to solve the same problem. The reason why I like to stack here, alright, to stack, is because it's always in order for you. You don't mix up the numbers. You know that the second point will come on top. Okay, you subtract the second from the first. Right, second from first, second from first. Okay, because the common misconception is when you try to label these, you may end up switching them. Like maybe you start with the 8 minus 2, and then you end up doing 7 minus 6, and so on. Okay, so stacking them kind of reminds you of what comes first and what to subtract first. Okay, all right. Doing the next example. So let's say if I did stack these, right? Let's take the second point, negative 2, 4, and stack it on top, or yeah, of the second point. Let me rewrite that. 3, 5. And then I know that rise over run is change in y over change in x, or the slope. So subtract the y's. 4 minus 5 would be negative 1. Negative 2 minus a negative 3 would be 1. Your slope would be negative 1. Okay? Now from a table, following the whole idea of slope where it's change in y over change in x, okay, that means I can see how my y values are changing and just divide it by how my x values are changing. Alright, so how are the y values changing? Well, 5 to 2, I would have to subtract 3. 2 to negative 1, I would have to subtract 3. Negative 1, negative 4. So it looks like the pattern is I'm subtracting negative 3. So minus 3 is how y is changing. Now how are the x's changing? Negative 1 to 2. Well, I got to add 1. Negative 2 to negative 1, add 1. Negative 1 to 0. Looks like the change is I'm adding 1, so you're dividing by 1, which would give me negative 3, or your slope would be negative 3. Right? From a graph, a couple ways to do this. You do have your points, right? Now you could do the 2 points method and say this is negative 3, and then 1, 2, 3, negative 3, and over here is negative 2. This point is negative 2, comma 1, or you can do rise over run. Okay, this is where rise over runs. A lot of times it may be quicker and easier just to do rise over run. So if you have 2 points, you're going to count how much is it rising by. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes me 4. All right, I have to rise 4 to get up to the next point. Okay, so from this point to travel up here, right, it would be 4. And then I got to move over to the right. I got to run, okay, and I'm only running 1, so it's 4 over 1, or your slope is just 4. All right. Lastly, you have the point slope form. Well, there's a y minus y1. We know those are just points of the point. X minus x1. And if you'll recognize, m always stands for slope. It's just that middle number, okay? The way I like to think of this is m kind of stands for middle too. It's also your slope. So whatever this middle number is in front of that parentheses is your slope. So m, your slope would be 5, right? And we could figure that out just by looking at it. And this is the point slope form. We'll go into more detail later, but for now, just recognize that the slope is always that number in front of the parentheses or multiplied. And just remember, if you don't have a number in front of the parentheses, like say x plus 7, say y minus 9, know that it is a 1, so your slope can be 1, okay? Even if it was just a negative, if there was just a minus sign here, a negative, your slope can be negative 1, so just recognize that rule with parentheses, alright? And that is on slopes, so thank you.